Hey, Arctic friends and family, let's talk about what does it look like to reopen the economy at the end of April, beginning of May 2020. First steps back to normal life. So we've got multiple things that are happening right now at the end of April. Both the federal government and individual states are releasing their plans and recommendations. The federal government is releasing recommendations on how to reopen the economy. Now, for those of us in the refrigerated freight world, we have not been shut down, and so we're not really having a restart, although we are having a form of a restart. And so I want to talk about how all of this is going to impact those of you who are Class A CDL holders who haul refrigerated freight either for Arctic Express or for someone else in the industry. So let's start with the federal plan and federal phase one. Let's talk about what phase one is. There's kind of two grounding principles underneath this federal recommendation for a three-phase restart of the economy. And the two pieces of that foundation are that individual states should increase testing and implement contact tracing. Contact tracing being when someone is identified as a coronavirus carrier or they're confirmed to have the illness, then techniques are used to identify who they may have come in contact with and help stop the spread from those who may not know that they have it to others who do not have it yet. Secondarily, we need to make sure that our healthcare capacity is never overwhelmed during the reopening and the restarting of the economy. So let's talk about phase one of the federal plan, and then I'm going to talk about Ohio's initial steps. That's where Arctic Express is located in Hilliard, Ohio. And while we service the eastern half of the country, we can't take the time to talk about every single one of those states. So we're going to talk about the recommendations from the state of Ohio. Federal phase one, vulnerable individuals, those who have a autoimmune issue, underlying issues, higher risk categories such as heart disease, diabetes, over the age of 65, are recommended to continue to shelter in place. And that's going to be consistent in phase one and phase two of the federal recommendations. In public, the phase one recommendation is to continue to minimize your interactions with other people and never more than 10 people in a particular location, no gatherings of more than 10 individuals. If you're working from home and that is a possibility to continue, the recommendation to employers is to allow employees who are already remotely working to continue to do that. Now, obviously for truck drivers, we don't remotely work. You've got to be in the truck, or for technicians, you have to be at the shop in order to do your duties. And so we've never implemented that type of a setup in this industry because it's simply not possible. But for other industries or pieces of the back office operations in trucking, if those individuals have been working remotely and can continue to work remotely, then the federal recommendation is to continue to allow that to minimize the number of people that are coming into any particular office. Things that are still closed would include schools and organized youth activities, summer camps, sports leagues, stuff like that, and no visits to senior living centers or hospitals. Large venues can only operate under strict distancing protocols. And I'll highlight that in Ohio, in the state of Ohio, even though phase one of the federal plan includes large venues, the state of Ohio does not include that in their initial rollout of what they're doing. So the state of Ohio has made an announcement this week and has followed up that announcement with a couple modifications. They've talked about 5 protocols for business, and I'm going to put a graphic up so that we can talk that through together. No mask, no work, no service, no exception. Now, this has been changed since the initial announcement on Monday, because the governor received feedback that for certain individuals, using a mask, face covering is simply not, it's not feasible, either because of health issues. There's a variety of reasons why that's not going to work for every single individual. And so they have rewound this a little bit, but the request is still that everybody who doesn't have a health reason why they can't mask, that they should mask, whether they're in the workplace or whether they are out shopping. Second protocol for businesses is daily health assessments, making sure that nobody's got the initial symptoms, fever, that sort of thing. 3, maintain good hygiene, hand washing, as we have talked about over and over in the whole coronavirus saga. Number 4, clean and sanitize workplaces. We've talked previously in our videos about our increased cleaning regimen at Arctic Express, both in the office, the shop, and inside of trucks, between a driver who has left the company and a new driver coming in and joining the company. We have elevated the disinfecting process to make sure that that truck is ready and is virus-free before a new driver gets in. But they're recommending that workplaces clean at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, and that at least one day a week they basically shut down for some period or some portion of the facility to do a deep clean. So maybe if it's a production facility, they would take a quadrant and stop that temporarily to do a deep clean. The business would continue to operate in the other areas. But that is the 4th protocol from the state of Ohio. And then number 5 is to limit capacity. If you've ever noticed, sometimes in large venues, there is a sign near the door that says, maximum occupancy 500. What this is requesting and basically mandating is that whatever those fire marshal occupancy limits are, be cut in half. So if it is a church building and the sanctuary could hold 500, then it's being told that for the time being, it can only hold 250, although large venues are not yet open in the state of Ohio. So the governor gave us 3 initial dates for rolling things out in the state of Ohio. May the 1st, which is Friday, the day that this video will be released on YouTube, all healthcare can reopen, including dental offices, veterinary care, and many of these things had been shut down or slowed down to solely emergency procedures because we wanted to make space for potential COVID surge. Thankfully, that hasn't happened. But there are a lot of elective surgeries or outpatient surgeries that people have had to postpone or were postponed for them. And those things can now begin to happen again, as long as it doesn't require an overnight stay at the hospital. So on May the 1st, all healthcare can reopen. They could remain to elect closed if they wanted. Someone asked about, a dental office who had given up their face masks to help the hospitals. And now if they don't have face masks, what are they supposed to do to protect themselves while working in the mouths of their patients? And the governor said, it's still their choice. They don't have to reopen. So if they don't have the proper PPE, they can choose to stay closed until they would source PPE to protect their dental hygienists and dentists. The second date is May the 4th, which is next Monday. And all manufacturing, distribution, and construction can reopen and follow the 5 guidelines that we outlined earlier. And this includes what the initial requirement was for face masks, face coverings at all times. And that has been, softened a little bit. Should there be some sort of a health reason why you can't utilize a face mask. Then the third date that we have for the state of Ohio, and the last date, this is all we know right now about the state of Ohio, is consumer retail and services can reopen on May the 12th, again following the 5 business protocols that the state has outlined, and a heavy expectation upon face coverings, as long as there's not a health reason why someone can't utilize a face covering. Still closed in the state of Ohio. Okay, still closed even after May the 12th, when consumer retail and services can reopen. Schools, dine-in restaurants and bars, salons and barber shops, entertainment, recreation, and fitness facilities, gyms, senior centers, adult daycares, and camps. So a lot of the things that mom and dad are hoping open up for the kids this summer, thus far are still not going to be open. And we want to kind of get the ball rolling and then stop and wait to see what happens with the spread of COVID. So that's phase 1 from the federal government, and that's basically phase 1 from Ohio, is these 3 rollout dates. The federal recommendations are all we have beyond that. And phase 2 could only be entered into if there has been no evidence of a rebound. All right, so as long as we move this forward and we don't have a huge spike in COVID cases, then phase 2 becomes an option for us to enter into. Phase 2 continues the recommendation that everybody who's vulnerable shelter in place, that people continue to telework where possible, and frequent cleaning of the workplace. Schools and organized youth can reopen. Things like daycares and day camps or summer camps could reopen in phase 2. Assisted living centers and hospitals are still not eligible for visitation. Then they start to unwind. Things like large venues can begin to operate with moderate physical distancing. Things like sit-down dining, movie theaters, sports venues, and places of worship. Elective surgeries, outpatient and inpatient, can resume. Right now in the state of Ohio, we're not doing inpatient surgeries yet. Fitness facilities could continue to be open. That was part of phase 1 recommendation from the federal government, but the state of Ohio has not gone along with that recommendation. At that point, those who are vulnerable can resume public interaction. Those who are high risk because of diabetes, obesity, heart disease, a long list of issues, autoimmune disorders, somebody who's under chemotherapy, or the elderly over the age of 65 could resume public interaction. Those who are low risk should consider minimizing time in crowded environments. So yes, everything is kind of open if you want to go, but if there's going to be huge crowds, then, give it some extra consideration. So this could really have an impact this summer on things like amusement parks, pools, county fairs, state fairs, and even into the fall with sporting events. There's going to be a question here in Ohio. We're big Buckeye fans, and the Horseshoe has a capacity of about 106, 108,000 people. So that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Will the NCAA have a college football season this fall? We don't know. But if they do, everybody who has tickets to a game is going to have to ask themselves the question, do I really think it's best for me personally to go and be around 110,000 people in very tight quarters. The recommendation in phase 3 is to continue to limit your exposure to crowded environments. Work sites, unrestricted staffing. All businesses are back open, operating at whatever capacity they choose. Assisted living and hospital visits can resume. They're asking people, as we always should be, to be diligent with our hygiene. Large venues can operate with limited distancing protocols. Things like weddings, event centers, churches, places of worship, and gyms and bars in phase 3 could increase their capacity. So if they were at 75% of capacity, maybe they go to 80%, 85, 90%, but we can really start the progression back to normal life. I don't know that we're ever going to really return to normal life. For those of you in the Class A CDL world, we hope that you are continuing to be productive if you have been put out of work. Our hope and expectation and prayer for you is that you're able to return quickly, that you stay healthy and safe on the road, that you're able to provide for your families. If you need a company, we would be happy to talk to you. And you can look us up online at arcticexpress.com. You can follow a link in the description to this video to learn more about us and give us a call and let us get to know you. Our orientation is now virtually completely online to limit the opportunities for potential sharing of virus so that you're healthy and we're healthy and we continue to operate. We're going to wait and see how all of the unwinding, the reopening of the economy goes. For many business owners today, they are very, very nervous about whether their businesses are going to survive, about whether they can continue to keep their people employed. And hopefully, we're going to get there sooner rather than later while continuing to control the spread of the coronavirus.